What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and another in our series of faction reviews here for Hail Caesar. Today we have the Celtiberians, so basically the Celtic tribes that are in Spain or were in Spain. So this is basically a list covering 1st through 2nd centuries BC. It's not a long list, so should be pretty quick to go through it here, and it presents an interesting sort of flavor of Celts in various ways and stuff that we've kind of already looked at in some lists. But again, specifically focusing on the ones in Spain here, so it presents a new way to play that type of army, and also on the hobby and modeling side, there are some opportunities there. So interesting list nonetheless. So infantry, it's basically infantry, so or mostly infantry based. So certainly you're gonna have to love playing mostly infantry armies if you're playing this list. So 75% or more has to be infantry, so you could definitely go 100% infantry, but it does also have options for cavalry. And a lot of times, having a little bit of a balanced list or a little bit of variety certainly helps and offers or presents some other opportunities for you as well. So you're not completely one-dimensional. So at least 3/4 of the units in the army must be infantry other than skirmishers. And then the caveat to that is warbands or Lusitanians have to be at least half of the infantry. So warbands or Lusitanians must make up at least half the non-skirmisher infantry units in the army, representing either a Celtiberian or specifically Lusitanian army. And then cavalry could be up to a quarter there. So and then interestingly here on the division side, so at least 4 units other than skirmishers, as is normal. However, if the general's guard unit is fielded, that must be part of his division. So we have that as well. So let's jump right in. Like I said, it's not a very long list. This is in fact everything here. So we start off with Celtiberian medium infantry warbands armed with swords and javelins. Again, that nice warband stat line. Although, unlike some of the warbands, we've seen that maybe push up into like 9 on clash. Here we have 8 and then 6 on sustained is normal, a little bit of short range, and 24 points a unit. However, we do have the option to upgrade to wildfighters for just a mere 3 points, and we're just bringing that special rule into play there in quantity as well. So never a bad thing there. When we've seen wildfighters in many lists in our series so far, so certainly can give you that extra offensive edge there. Following that, Celtiberian medium infantry bodyguard warband, so just the 1 unit. So that's that general's unit essentially. So same thing as before. However, here for 29 points, we have tough fighters, fanatic, and valiant. So an interesting combination that we really haven't seen together like that. But if you're going to be playing this list to begin with, and the fact that you don't have that many options as far as variety of units, this certainly seems like a no-brainer to take for your general's division, just because that's about the best of the best that you're going to be able to field there as far as just quality on the unit. And certainly, again, that combination of special rules there is an interesting one nonetheless. We move over to Lusitanian light infantry armed with javelins and or spears. So, about what you expect from a light infantry unit. A little bit of short range, or better short range ability so far. But otherwise, typical, light infantry stat line. And these guys are marauders. Again, not something we've seen a lot of, but interesting rule nonetheless, and something that we bring in here. And again, in quantity on that, 23 points a unit. Then we move into some skirmishers, and these are with javelins fielded as small units. And then we could also pay a little bit extra, basically just the 1 point. And half of our skirmishers could be slingers, which gives us a long range option. And in fact, the only long range option for the whole army. So definitely something to consider. And just for a 1 point upgrade there, that's certainly worth it. Although you do lose 1 in clash. But again, if these guys have managed to get into close combat, it's probably not looking good for you. Or at least in general there. But again, that is literally the only long range you can have in the whole list. And that basically wraps up the infantry. So it's going to be lots and lots of warbands that you're throwing at people. And, if you have the points, it's pretty interesting, and could be worthwhile just to throw all of your Celtiberian warbands at people as wild fighters. It's the prospect of having a whole army of basically these wildfighter warbands is pretty scary, and that's about the nastiest stuff that this list could offer up, just as straight up like blocks of infantry fighters basically that are going to do the bulk of your work for you. And again, keep in mind that above that 75% requirement, just 3/4 of the army is going to be infantry anyway, so you might as well give it the best that you can there, and then work in whatever light infantry or skirmishers that you want there. And again, I'd overall just always recommend doing sort of a mix in your army wherever possible. So having a little bit of cavalry is always, I think, useful, gives you a little bit more of a dimension, and we'll see here now if that is worthwhile, as I've been saying. So medium cavalry armed with spears and or javelins, so just your bog standard medium cavalry unit here. Another clash of 8, sustain drops off, of course, and yeah, other than that, no frills there. 27 points per unit. So, nothing spectacular, nothing bad, certainly. So, just however many of those you can afford based on the size of the game and whatever percentage, up to 25% of your list that you want. Definitely worth considering there. Gives you some speed and, again, just some mobile punch. Then we have sort of an interesting situation here with the subunit light infantry. So armed with spears and or javelins, fielded as small units up to 1 per cavalry. So again, those get treated as a subunit. So not necessary to run it, but an interesting approach nonetheless. Think back to some of the earlier like chariot runner units that we've seen back in the Bronze Age list that we were covering. So an interesting concept there. May or may not be worth it, just depending on the style and what you want to accomplish already. But another interesting option that just makes those cavalry a little bit nastier potentially as well. And then finally, a separate light cavalry unit with javelins as small units. Again, just more of a small, cheap, harassing unit that can go after other similar types of prey, and also just be used to get into positions to block and otherwise maybe potentially redirect enemies there. And again, not a whole lot of points, just 17 as well. So let's review here real quick. And then commanders, of course. So this is just a leadership 8 army, no upgrades or anything like that, which is great. We're not hampered by having like leadership 7 or something like that. So this is still pretty solid and typical on the leadership side. So as far as options here, again, not too many. You're basically going to be repeating a lot of the same type of thing, but by and large, you're going to be sort of copy pasting a lot of Celtiberian medium warbands, I think. A little bit of the light infantry and skirmisher action there. Certainly, again, I would bring as many slingers as I could just to have a little bit long range. And then, as many medium cavalry as I think I can afford and want to take there, basically just to have, again, mobility and punch there. Now, with this not being a big list or huge variety, nonetheless, it does some interesting things. Essentially the average dice you're throwing in Clash is 8, which is overall more than what your typical army might be fielding. Add to that most of it's going to be wild fighters, or in the case of the generals unit, that other combination there is pretty interesting, pretty nasty. So I think the army's definitely got a glass cannon feel to it. You're gonna hit pretty hard, but then things are gonna level off pretty quickly, and really the best morale save in the whole thing is 5 up. Other than that, you got a couple of 6-ups and then 0s, of course. So you're gonna those casualties are gonna pile up fairly quickly. There's not much in the way of defense or other things that you have there. And so really you're going to have to hit as hard as possible, overwhelm with numbers, and just hope that you pile on the casualties faster and hopefully break some units here and there. Once you can maybe break through somewhere on their line, that would be a great time to have like cavalry position to get around, punch through, get in the flanks. And if you have enough other cavalry and or skirmishers or any of the light cavalry, sort of keeping them contained there and preventing them from doing similar things, this could offer an interesting list, I think, overall. So, and collecting shouldn't be difficult too. There's a lot of existing Celt minis out there, whether plastic or metal, depending on what you want to go with. And the cavalry, again, same deal. So as far as collecting the army, just because there's so many other similar Celt lists out there, this should be pretty easy to collect. And really, if you're going like the plastic route there, if you wanted to do a little bit of kit bashing here and there just to maybe make these guys look a little bit different, maybe more what the Celtiberians may have in fact look like. Again, it's worth doing some research. Certainly there's enough kits out there as well, so definitely worth looking into. Fun little list to try out if you're looking for something a little bit different with your existing Celtic miniature collection. So definitely recommend it. Let us know in the comments, guys, if you've run these guys, the Celtiberians again, and look forward to hearing from you. Let us know what's worked, what's not worked. Again, look up things like Punic War, Celtiberian Wars, Numantia, and the Sertorian War, if you want some extra background there. And of course, a couple of internet searches, you can find probably enough pictures there just to get an idea of like paint schemes and things like that. So again, let us know in the comments, guys. We do appreciate anytime you do that. Like and subscribe as well. And if you really do want to support the channel even more, there's a link in the description. If you guys head over to Warlord via that link and buy anything, that helps the channel there. So definitely, if you're considering buying anything, please do that. That definitely helps. And then look forward to seeing you guys in the next one as we continue on our series. Thanks so much for stopping by again.